Hey guys, so it's been a busy week. I haven't had much chance to work on this thing, so finally back to it. Here's how it's looking. So we're all welded up. It's all looking nice. The other side's all done now. She's good. As you've seen before, that's all nice and cleaned up, so that's all good. That is welded. I just have to grind it all out and make that hole round again. Gotta make those holes great again. Woo! And I've got to straighten out this bracket because it is all sorts of hooky still. Comparative to the other side over there, this is still pushed in about, I don't know, 3.5 millimeters, 4 millimeters that way. So I'm gonna have to get in there and I'm gonna have to straighten that out. But how might you straighten that out, you might ask? Well, in the name of overkill, we've got a 10-ton porta power and a duckbill. Frickin' send it!
A few moments later.
Okay, kind of as expected. I can't get the duckbill in here quite the way that I'd like it to, so I'm gonna have to ease it out a little bit. That's okay. And as you can see here, that is still kind of dished inwards right here. So I'm gonna see if I can get some pressure on this reinforced structure that's down here now. And I'm gonna see if I can get this jacked out a little bit, which will help pull on this, which will also help me get this to come out a little bit further.
Predator action later.
So now what I need to do is get in here and just rattle the hell out of it. Well, I've got some pressure with the porta power. Oh shit, that's actually moving fairly easy. Cool. Cool. Get a little bit more juice. And okay, back that off. Ah! Gravity! Go figure. Alright, well, it's starting to come. It's still a little bit bent, but it's starting to move, so that's progress. So this is my problem. I could barely get that duckbill in where it needs to be. And it's pushing against a little bit down here. I wanted it pushing more on here. It's mostly pushing on that pipe up above. So I'm gonna have to kind of mess with this and get in here with a pry bar while I've got some pressure and ease this out. And while I've got tension on there, rattle it with a hammer. Okay, so that seemed to be effective. You get the hammer, start whacking on the pry bar here. This is kind of ghetto as hell, but that's okay. Whatever works. I've been wedging it in there while I'm getting pressure, and you can see those jaws are really starting to open up a little bit more. It is also bending a little bit in here, which is not going to be much help, but I can straighten that out again later. No big deal. And a little more pressure, and just keep giving it some wacky poos. Oh god, it's starting to move. And then we get over here. Fucking, oh shit. Yeah, that's not gonna work. I can't do this while holding. Okay, so I got that tapped back in there. You see it's really starting to spread out the way I need it to. This is good. And we give her a little extra pump. Alright. And freaking rattle it, right? Now you might wonder why I'm hitting it over here. That's because the shock wave, every time that you hit it with a hammer, is still traveling through all that steel. And if there's stress that's in here that's holding the damage in, which I know there is, it'll eventually start getting released as I massage this out. Okay, so at this point, I've managed to get that duckbill in there. It's fitting a lot easier now. It's all starting to come out. And what I'm doing is I'm rattling the bottom here. You see there's a weld that's in here where there's a lot of strength. And as I'm striking directly underneath that weld, it's going to start releasing some of the pressure that's in the steel down here. This is the way that I have the duckbill situated. And slowly start spreading it out. So I'm just going to give it a couple more whacks. That is almost right where I need it. I'm gonna have to massage this back just a little bit, but otherwise I think I've pretty much got it minty. It's pretty much what I wanted. Then I'll have to move on to this side, get that. Alrighty, I think we are unsquished. Now to move on to this side, that you can clearly tell needs some love. That's not right. Alright, so I just moved the port of power a little bit. Got some more pressure on it. And now we just... Now it's not recommended when you're using a duckbill like this and you're straightening things out that you be hammering like crazy on a piece of metal, because these are not as strong as you would like them to be. They're only, I think they're rated for like 2 tons. So, and considering that this is a 10-ton unit, you don't want to go nuts. Otherwise, things break. I've seen it happen. It's not pretty. So, what I'm doing here is just ever so delicately hammer the shit out of it, but not so much that you break other shit. Delicate hammering. Yeah. Okay, let that come down. Whew. And then, as you can see, as I get that to focus a little better, that is just about there. Now I just have to straighten out this little lip here, and we should be pretty much minty. I figure the best way that I should be doing that is I'll just use the flat edge of my hammer here. As you can see, there's a little bit of a crease in here. So what I'll do is I'll literally just line that up the crease like so. And seeing as I can't record because I'm dumb and in my infinite wisdom didn't bring my gimbal or my camera holding dewy thingers, so it's like me trying to remember to bring a fork with me to work for lunch. It just hasn't been happening lately. Anywho, so yeah, I'll just massage that out and I'll be able to get this straightened out from the inside just by hitting it with a hammer this way, that direction, and we'll see how she looks. And just like that, I think we've nailed it. All I'm gonna have to do now is clean out the inside, get all that ucky stuff out of there, and start getting this prepped out so I can get it ready for paint. But before I do that, I'm really gonna have to finish cleaning this shenanigans up because, well, that's clearly still a mess. The dimensions on these things suck. Freaking brutal. But anyway, we've got these guys here, and I have my new Super ATV high lifter lower control arm here with a 1.5 inch forward rake. Yeah, buddy. Anyway, we're just gonna mock this thing up here. We're gonna see if we got this together. We're gonna know whether I got this right just by eyeballing it. Okay, so that's about centered right there, and without shifting anything. Oh, frick, would you look at that? That is exactly where she needs to be. By the time the bushings go in, it's gonna be a perfect fit. Cool. Well, isn't that hilariously convenient? It's like I knew what I was doing. That's okay. And for the sake of entertaining myself here, what I'm going to do is my new package of goodies. I've got some All Balls Racing bushings and new pins. So I'm going to mock these up, put them into the control arm, and just see how it sits. Because why not, right? Well, would you look at that? It's like it was meant to fit. Frick, imagine that. Well, that's convenient. I guess I can't complain now, can I? Cool. So, Minty, we have now one really flirpy looking control arm, but one control arm nonetheless that is now actually fitting where it's supposed to. Cool. Progress. So, this point, that means the worst of the damage is now fixed. Now I gotta start getting this thing ready for paint. Oh boy. Well, it's another night back at the RZR, and the plan for tonight is to start doing some prepping. So, might as well get started. So what I'm going to be using to prep out this frame, really simple stuff. 3M red Scotch-Brite. This stuff is really good for prepping for paint or for primer or things of that nature. It scuffs up whatever material you're working on to a point that just about anything will stick to it. On this machine here, you can see that we have all of our weld locations here, right? Now this didn't actually get affected too badly, surprisingly enough, but as I was straightening out this frame, there are components here, like over here, where the paint actually ended up cracking. Right here, the paint started to let go while the frame was flexing, while I was straightening it out, and it wasn't even just affected down here, it was all the way up here. You could see the paint had ended up splitting. So what I'm going to have to do, just in the efforts of corrosion protection, is I'm going to have to take all this wiring off, and I'm going to have to actually prep this out with that red Scotch-Brite, scuff all this material out, and get it ready so that way I could put some more paint on it for the future. The idea when you're doing this sort of stuff is you just want to take the shine off, if there is any. Super simple. You can see how there's a little bit of a sheen to this metal, or to this paint, I guess, when it's clean and there isn't dirt on it. But when you take the Scotch-Brite to it, you can see how it's got this matte finish. That is exactly what you want when you go to prep this stuff out, so that way you know that paint is going to stick to it later. We're just going to go over all of this. Doesn't take a whole lot of effort at all. Just go over top of everything, give her a little bit of a scuffy scuff, and that's pretty much it. There you go. Super freaking easy. Now, for this frame, I do not need to worry about doing the whole thing. I am going to be concerned about some of these sections here. I'm going to be looking all over the frame where all these weld points are, just to make sure that they're cleaned up. You can see down here there's a section that I was working and I had to clean some of that paint away before I started welding, so we're just going to go over top of that. As I had mentioned earlier, nice thing about that Scotch-Brite being able to clean stuff is it'll actually take off whatever's on here. And you can see I still have some weld-through primer that's showing up. And a lot of this stuff is covered up anyway, it's not a big deal, but it takes that weld-through primer right off. Super easy. It's all scuffed up. The metal, as you can see, it's still bare steel. Alright, so, as you can see, I've got all that painted up now. It's just drying. You'll notice that I didn't paint the whole frame, and if those of you are wondering why I didn't bother doing that, it's because all of this is covered up with the plastics, the front fender and whatnot. They call it a fender, it's like a hood and fender assembly. All of that is covering all that, so it doesn't matter. All I'm going for here is to make sure that all of the damaged paint was covered up and sealed up and black. And soon enough, you're never gonna know any of this was done, because things be crazy, or whatever the cool people say and stuff.